You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, this is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast here from Nissan Stadium. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s out there here on Christmas Eve for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it, and a happy holidays to each and every one of you and your loved ones. Make it a great one here at Christmas Eve. And, of course, tomorrow on the big day, Christmas, the Seahawks giving fans a gift early on Christmas Eve, though it wasn't necessarily the prettiest gift. For a while, it looked like the Seahawks were not going to find a way to win this football game in Tennessee. The Titans were game. They were ready to go. They were pesky, ran the football well with Derrick Henry, but the Seahawks find a way to scratch and claw and get a 20-17 win. Geno Smith was not going to be outdone by his quarterback counterpart, Drew Lock, who obviously had the crucial clutch comeback win against the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night. Geno Smith was not going to be one-upped by his backup. In his return to action, orchestrates a 96-yard scoring drive for the Seahawks to march down the field and take the lead, and then comes back on the next drive. The Seahawks march down again after the Titans had retaken the lead 17-13, marches Seattle down 57 passing yards on the drive, caps it off with a touchdown to Colby Parkinson. Really was a fantastic fourth quarter for Geno Smith. And you look at the numbers from the final game-winning drive, 7 for 10, 57 yards with that touchdown to Colby Parkinson, who had a much smaller defender one-on-one against him. It was a play that Colby Parkinson said that they have been waiting 20 games to run, or at least he's been waiting 20 games for them to run, and Geno Smith went to him with that ideal matchup against a much smaller corner against him in coverage. And Smith was really wheeling and dealing. It wasn't that way the entire game. At the beginning of the game, looked like he was a little bit rusty after missing the last 2 games with a groin injury. Some of us in the press box were wondering, where's the health at? Where is he at from a 75, 80, 95% perspective with that groin injury? How healthy is he going into this game? There were a couple of missed touchdown opportunities in the red zone in the first half. He had throws to Jackson Smith and Jigba and Colby Parkinson in the back left-hand corner of the end zone where he was just a touch late unloading the ball. They were accurate throws, but it took the receivers out of bounds before they could get 2 feet down. So there were some issues early in the game, but I thought in the second half that he was fantastic, and he was throwing the ball all over the place. And the Seahawks got contributions from a number of different players on the outside. Tyler Lockett had a really good game. Jackson Smith and Jigba coming up with another big catch on 3rd and 14 on this game-winning drive for an 18-yard completion. Smith was sacked before that on 2nd down. That looked like a devastating sack for the Seahawks, and yet Smith came right back and went to his trusted rookie receiver, picks up the first down. They get a pass interference penalty on DK Metcalf. That's some 22 yards down inside the 10. A couple plays later, they cash in with the touchdown to Parkinson. And I think the other storyline coming out of this game, the defense had their issues in this game. Derrick Henry ran all over him in the first half. He had 58 yards on just 8 carries, and a lot of that was coming off tackle. The Titans went into this game with a game plan to attack Seattle's edge defenders, which has been a smart move as of late. They have struggled to set the edge, and that continued in this game. They were able to get a big chunk of yards off edge with their run plays. Tajay Spears also had a couple really nice runs, 4 carries for 21 yards in the first half. They tightened things up in the second half, though. Even though Derrick Henry did score a touchdown late that gave the Titans the lead 17-13, he only had 30 rushing yards and 11 carries in the second half. So they were able to make adjustments. A lot of it had to do with the personnel groupings. Jared Reed told me after the game in his press conference that they ran everything. They threw everything at him from a personnel standpoint, not as much of the multi-tight end stuff. They were running a lot of different formations that they hadn't seen on film. So they had to adjust in the second half. They did a good job of that. And what really won this game, what put a bow on this Christmas present for Seahawk fans, it was the pass rush. Once Geno Smith was able to get that game-winning touchdown, which, by the way, that is his 4th game-winning drive this season, which is tied for the most in the NFL. So anybody that's questioned his clutch gene Geno has been stepping up in these big games as much as any quarterback down the stretch. He knows how to cap off wins. He did it again today, but the pass rush came to life at the very end of this game to ensure that the Seahawks got the victory. And really the entire game, the Seahawks were able to get pressure on Ryan Tannehill. They had 7 sacks as a team, 8 quarterback hits. Jared Reed forced a fumble on Tannehill just 3 plays into the game, forced a 3-and-out. The Titans punt. The Seahawks were not able to capitalize off that, but the pass rush at all levels was really good in this game, especially down the stretch. After they got that final touchdown, you get a sack from Boye Mafe, which was his second of the game, so he ended his drought emphatically. He had not had a sack in 5 games. He gets 2 sacks in this contest, including a critical one that forced the Titans to burn their last timeout inside a minute to play. And then a few moments later, Draymond Jones gets in the backfield. He had been so close a couple times to getting to Ryan Tannehill, finally gets to him, gets the sack, and that allowed the Seahawks to pretty much bleed out the clock. The Titans ran one more play, scrambling up to the line. Reek Woolen delivers a big hit along the sideline without the receiver going out of bounds. Game over. Seahawks end up slipping by with a 3-point win. So the pass rush was really a big part of it. Bobby Wagner had a sack where he walloped Tannehill on a blitz. Mario Edwards got his second sack of the season. You had Reed and Mafe getting the job done as well. The front line did a pretty good job of pressuring Ryan Tannehill inside out throughout this game. They got a lot of pressures that didn't net quarterback hits or sacks as well. So it was nice to see the pass rush come alive. They gave up less than 300 total yards of offense. So even though the Titans ran the football well, they got some big third down conversions in the passing game in this game. Overall, it was a pretty good game on defense, giving up just 17 points against an offense that, quite frankly, was missing some key pieces on the offensive line, on the outside at receiver as well. But Derrick Henry's still very much one of the best running backs in the league. The Titans were able to keep this game close with a possession-based offense, running the football well, converting 50% of their third downs. The Seahawks were able to make them pay at the very end, though, with their third down, or with their pass rush coming up big and getting to Ryan Tannehill a couple times on that final drive to ensure that the Seahawks got the victory. And now with this win, because the Vikings lost to the Detroit Lions today, the Seahawks jumped up to the 7th spot, the final wild card in the NFC, and things are looking fairly good for the Seahawks. They now truly control their destiny. If they win out, they are in the playoffs. They no longer have to worry about that. Just take care of your business. You don't need help from other teams. You will get one of those final wild card spots no matter what. If they slip up in a game in the next 2 weeks, there's still a decent chance that they could make the playoffs with the Vikings losing. The Vikings still have to play the Packers. They have another game coming up against the Lions at the end of the season. Detroit could still be playing for the top seed in the NFC potentially. So that game could still be a critical one for them where they're not resting a bunch of starters in that game. And then the teams right behind Seattle all have worse conference records. So other than the Rams, who had the tiebreaker beating the Seahawks both times this year, the tiebreakers are working pretty well for the Seahawks right now. The Buccaneers beating the Jaguars as well. It looks like they are going to lock up that NFC South division sooner rather than later. That bodes well for Seattle's chances here. They have to like how the tiebreakers are breaking, but just take care of your business after getting this tough win in Tennessee on the road. Enjoy your holiday. They are in a position where they can win out and they can get into the postseason. All right, let's shift gears here. With this being a Christmas Eve episode, we're not going to have any ads or anything. We're just going to keep rolling here. Let's get to our game balls here in Nashville. The Seahawks getting that 20-17 victory over the Tennessee Titans. And on offense, as I mentioned a few moments ago, this was not a perfect game for Geno Smith necessarily. Early on, he missed a few throws. Before halftime, it looked like they were going to get points, and then he threw a swing route to Zach Charbonnet that got knocked 4 yards in the backfield. It knocked him out of field goal range. So there were some questionable decisions. There were the 2 missed throws in the red zone, but overall, it was a really good return performance for Geno Smith. 227 passing yards. He completed 69% of his passes in this game. So right at what he was at last year for the entire season when he led the league in completion percentage. And those 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to DK Metcalf and Colby Parkinson. The first one to Metcalf, that was a perfect throw, and what a job by Metcalf reeling that in with one hand, getting both feet down. They initially ruled that it was incomplete. Pete Carroll challenged it. The Seahawks end up getting it overturned and take the lead for the first time. I thought Geno Smith was magnificent throwing the football around in that fourth quarter, one of the better quarters that we've seen from him this year. He was getting the ball to all of his receivers. He was getting the tight ends involved. And most importantly, no turnovers, didn't have any interceptions. Had one time the ball got knocked out of his hands early in the game on a sack, but he was able to land on it and recover. So second straight game, they pull off the comeback, and the quarterback does not have any turnovers. In these really close games, those type of plays can be the difference between a win and a loss, and the quarterbacks are playing clean football right now for the Seahawks. That is a big deal. So game ball number 4 for Geno Smith this year, ironically, with his 4th game-winning drive coming today against the Tennessee Titans, looked really good at the quarterback position after showing some rust early on in this football game. And on the defensive side, I had a couple candidates that I considered here for this game ball. There were several players that had solid games on defense for the Seahawks, but you got to go with Boye Mafe, who was consistently in the backfield. Ryan Tannehill probably going to have some nightmares about number 53, who was back there frequently, early and often. 6 tackles, 2 sacks. He also had 2 other quarterback hits. He finished with 4 quarterback hits total in this game. There were a few missed opportunities early where Boye Mafe was out of position, setting the edge against the run. So like Geno Smith, you can say he got off to kind of a slow start, but he had a couple nice run tackles in the second half as well, as the Seahawks really got things rolling. So you look at what happened with Boye Mafe's game, much like Geno Smith, started off slow, was able to turn things around, and he put the finishing touches on this win by getting after the quarterback and ensuring that the Seattle Seahawks were able to get that final stop. So a big game for Mafe. He now has 9 sacks in the season, a really good chance with 2 games left to go that he will get to double-digit sacks for the first time in his career, with a game against Pittsburgh coming next week and then a game in the season finale going against Arizona on the road. If he can get 1 sack in those 2 games, he will reach double digits, which will be a big achievement here early in his career, especially considering he just had that 5-game drought getting after the quarterback. It's nice to see he had some good pressures the last few weeks. They didn't turn into quarterback hits and sacks. Getting back into sack column today with 2 of them on Ryan Tannehill. I thought he played really well. Aside from a couple of times where he got out of position against the run, I thought it was another really solid game for Boye Mafe. And on the special teams route, this one's pretty simple here on Christmas Eve. Not a lot of candidates to consider. There weren't any like noteworthy special teams plays, no big hits. There weren't any big kick returns or punt returns in this game. Jason Myers is going to get the award just simply for doing his job. He kicked both of his field goals between the uprights, made both of his extra points. He accounted for 8 of the Seahawks' 20 points in this football game. And when they got stopped in the red zone twice in the first 3 quarters, he was able to make sure that they got 6 points out of those drives, and that helped them secure this close 20-17 victory. So again, just did his job, but there weren't any, noteworthy highlight reel plays on special teams. It was a pretty good performance from Jason Myers in this game, so he gets the special teams ball for simply doing his job well in this game. And let's shift gears now to the 3 up, 3 down. Again, with this being a Christmas Eve episode, going to be a little shorter. We're going to run through it. This is a big win for the Seahawks, but no ads. Don't have to worry about any of that stuff here on the live show. It's all about getting ready for the holiday and enjoying this victory for the Seahawks. As far as 3 up, 3 down goes, I'm going to start at the receiver position with 2 players that jump out. And Tyler Lockett didn't quite reach the numbers that I projected in my weekly picks to click. I had him at 11 catches, 107 yards, and finding the end zone. And he could have in this game. Geno Smith missed on a free play, a deep ball to Tyler Lockett in the first half, just a little bit overthrown. If that would have been on the money, Lockett had a chance to score a touchdown there and get a 40-plus yard score. With there being a defensive offsides penalty, Geno Smith took that shot. Unfortunately, the throw was just a little bit off, but still had a really good game today. 8 receptions, 81 yards. And on that final drive, Jackson Smith-Njigba's 3rd and 14 catch is the one that's going to get the most notoriety from that particular drive, as it should. That was a clutch play, but after that catch, Tyler Lockett had 2 second down receptions that moved the chains, that helped the Seahawks get deeper into Titans territory. Then you had Metcalf's pass interference penalty against him. and they were in business inside the 5-yard line. But Lockett had 2 big receptions on that drive to get a fresh set of downs, and he was consistently coming up with big plays at a 21-yard catch moments before one of their field goals in this game as well. So he came through with some big plays and had some good chain-moving receptions. And as for Jackson Smith and Jigba, this is a guy that I didn't know if he was going to play most of this game. He actually, on the missed touchdown attempt in the first half, he ended up running into a wall. He rolled into a wall and hit his leg hard up against concrete, and he had to be helped up, was able to walk off the field. But for a while, it looked like there was some concern about his knee. Is he going to be able to return? Not only did he return, he came up with some huge catches in this game, that 3rd and 14 reception being the most notable. Again, Geno Smith gets sacked the previous play. You're well behind the sticks. The Titans can pin their ears back, and they've got some really good pass rushers headlined by Harold Landry. That was the one thing the Titans still had going on defense today. They had their full assortment of edge rushers to get after Geno Smith. It was not an ideal situation, yet Smith stood in the pocket, calm and collected. There's Jackson Smith and Jigba coming across the field, slanting hard. Smith hits him for an 18-yard catch. They move the chains. That was maybe the biggest play of the game for the Seahawks, because if they end up with 4th and long, that would have been really difficult to convert on. Getting that first down was a huge deal for the Seahawks. And again, another big game for him. Haven't yet got that 100-yard game, but he is going to get there at some point as he continues to grow week in and week out. And on the defensive side of the ball, let's give Dre'Mont Jones some love. Dre'Mont Jones, you look at what he's dealt with this season. He has had such high expectations with the contract that the Seahawks gave him in free agency, more than $15 million per year. He entered today with just 4.5 sacks, but this was the first game this year where I consistently was sitting in the press box like, man, number 55 is really making his presence felt. And even after tweaking his ankle in the 3rd quarter, having to be helped off, he was able to come back in the game. He had 5 pressures by my count. And again, that's unofficial. I have to see the film to see where everything stacks up. But he had a couple quarterback hits. He got really close a couple times to getting Tannehill earlier in this game. And he had that pivotal game-clinching sack in the closing 20 seconds. The Titans couldn't stop the clock. They had no timeouts left. Ryan Tannehill eats it, and basically it bled the clock out. They were able to get one more snap off, and it resulted in a very short completion that ended the game. But he ended up being the one that closed this one out for the Seahawks with that sack. He was very active in the pass rush all day long. And so for a guy that's been on the other side of the coin on the 3 down a couple times this year, this was a really nice performance for Dre'Mont Jones, and hopefully he can carry it over to the last couple of games, because if you get him going with that pass rush with Leonard Williams, Jaron Reed, what you saw from Boye Mafe today, that can still be a very effective pass rush, hopefully going into the postseason when they're going to be facing some of the better quarterbacks in the NFL in the NFC. On the flip side, this was a game where there were a few players that made some costly mistakes that almost hurt the Seahawks to the extent where they lost this game, a game they could not afford to lose on the road to an injury-depleted Titans squad. On offense, I'm going to call out Charles Cross, and I thought that he played better in the second half, and Pete Carroll lauded the pass protection late. Everybody was doing a good job keeping Geno Smith upright for the most part down the stretch, but Charles Cross had a rough game, and in the first quarter, Arden Key just absolutely dominated him off the edge, flew right past him, rolled around the corner and got to Smith, forced a fumble. Luckily, the quarterback was able to fall on the football, but that was a bad rep. He gave up another quarterback hit by my count. It may have been worse when I go back and watch the film, but he had some issues with Arden Key and Harold Landry. Their speed off the edge, he consistently had some problems with that. He's been playing really good football up to this point, so I don't think it's anything to be worried about. The Titans do have some good edge rushers, but not the best performance that we have seen from Charles Cross protecting the quarterback in this game. As for the defensive side, I have 2 players in the secondary on this list. Trey Brown missed some practice time this week, so we're going to give him maybe a little bit of a pass from that standpoint. He's at a heel that's been bugging him, but he had a critical pass interference penalty in this game, and he didn't start either. It was Mike Jackson, Reek Woolen as the starters, so Trey Brown was just rotating in, only got a handful of snaps in this game, but He made an inexcusable penalty on DeAndre Hopkins on the Titans' final touchdown drive where the pass was way off. It wasn't going to get completed. And Trey Brown was in good position. He decided to wrap up Hopkins at the top of his route. And of course, the refs are going to throw a flag anytime that happens. It ends up being a 15-yard penalty, automatic new set of downs. And then a couple plays later, Artie Burns, there was some really good acting, like Oscar award-worthy acting by the Titans receiver on this play, but he retaliated at the goal line, shoved the receiver, and ended up drawing an unnecessary roughness penalty that gave the Titans a new set of downs inside the 3-yard line. Derrick Henry punches it in the very next play. Titans take the lead. It's those kind of mistakes that hurt the Seahawks time and time again when they had that 4-game losing streak, lost 5 out of 6, and it looked like they might add another loss to that total because of those mistakes that you just simply cannot afford to make. Defensive pass interferences are going to happen, but you can't wrap guys up. It just was one of those plays that was really weird to see happen in real time, wondering what was he thinking? Why is he doing that? He was in good position, maybe a panic penalty going against one of the better receivers in the NFL. As for Artie Burns, again, there was acting on the other side of the thing, but don't put yourself in a position where refs have to make a judgment call like that. And so he's got to do a better job there. They've just got to be more disciplined. That continues to be something that week in, week out is giving the Seahawks some issues. And so those two ending up on this list. Artie Burns gave up a couple big catches. Trey Brown didn't play a lot, but that penalty was huge down the stretch. So a couple of guys in secondary that I think will be looking to play much better next week against a Steelers team that is coming off a massive upset win over the Bengals. If Mason Rudolph can keep rolling the way he did, or Kenny Pickett comes back, that's certainly going to be a tough game, even at home on New Year's Eve. As always, 12s, greatly appreciate you listening into the show. You can follow me on Twitter or on Threads at Corbin Smith NFL. Make sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Seahawks on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast, to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Coming up on Tuesday, tomorrow's Christmas, we will not have a show, but on Tuesday, we'll dish out our takeaways coming out of this game and start to shift our attention towards week 17 against that Pittsburgh Steelers squad that still has an outside chance to make the playoffs in the AFC. Going to be a really fun matchup in week 17. Enjoy your Christmas Eve. Enjoy your Christmas tomorrow. Thanks for listening in, and go Hawks.